Ever wish you could cut your regular 35mm frames into 8 smaller frames? Yeah, no one has. But in the year 2013, Lomography made it possible with this Mega Block looking thing, designed to make a movie with a single frame of 35mm film. Unsurprisingly, I found this at none other than Goodwill, and after it sat collecting dust for the past 4 years, I decided it was finally time to take it out for a spin. Or a few spins, actually. Now, technically, this isn't the first time I've shot this camera. I tested it out back when I got it with some expired film, but the results were unfortunate. You'll notice half of the frames are blank due to an issue with the shutter release mechanism not having enough tension, but we'll get into that later. First step was to travel down to Florida to find better lighting, but it was equally bad. So instead of color film, we're going to shoot with HP5, which should help with the distracting color cast due to inconsistent exposure. The camera is surprisingly difficult to load. The film take-up spool really doesn't like to catch the sprocket holes, and the camera also sounds like it's breaking with every user interaction, which it actually kind of is. But with a moderate amount of struggling, I eventually got the film loaded. Okay, I guess it's good. The first thing you'll notice with a lot of these shots is the massive parallax, which I had a very difficult time correcting for. The camera only has this little action finder type thing, which is essentially worthless on anything closer than 15 feet. This is really more of a spray and pray type shooting experience in which you should point the lenses in the direction of your subject and hope for the best. After wandering around the neighborhood for a while and getting a feel for the camera, I decided to take a ride over to a local greenhouse because plants make for such great moving subjects. This would have actually been a really cool location to shoot with a camera that isn't the Oktomat, but I think the black and white film actually made the most of the even low contrast lighting. There were also some circulation fans which fortunately created a little bit of movement that I tried to capture in a few of the frames. Though a lot of the motion actually comes from the intense parallax swing you get from the lenses sweeping across one end of the frame and back to the other. This at least allows you to gain some motion on non-moving subjects, but it can also make things a little bit more busy and harder to read. And with that, it was time to say goodbye to our leafed compatriots, as well as our four-legged ones, as I would soon be flying home. I was actually in Florida for my sister's wedding, which was an all-consuming experience, and I basically had no time to do anything else. We'll just have to continue the Oktomania elsewhere, and what better place than an event dedicated to analog photography. On 4/20, I traveled to Photographica, which is essentially an analog photography market held at a random high school outside of Boston. I snagged a few different items that may rematerialize in future videos, but there wasn't a whole lot in the way of deeply discounted broken things that I usually go after. The event was pretty cool, but we were itching to blaze through some rolls of film, that is. So we delved deeper into the bowels of the greater Boston area until we arrived in Cambridge. There was a lot of good movement to be found in the city, but I wish I would have removed the goofy wrist strap that kept flopping its way into my frames. On the drive home, I considered the daunting prospect of putting another roll through the Oktomat, which I found quite unappealing, but I would be remiss if I didn't give color film another attempt. But first, let's tear down the camera and see what's under the hood. The disassembly process is quite simple. There are just a shit ton of screws which are hidden in various areas across the camera body. With all the screws taken out, we can remove this top cover, which reveals a bunch of gears that do stuff that we're not going to investigate. So let's keep going. With the front cover removed, we can see how the shutter release operates. It sits under two shouldered screws that allow it to slide up and down under spring tension. Yeah, don't ask me what's going on with that advanced lever return spring. There's a plastic catch on top which holds another spring that pulls horizontally across the shutters. After reaching the end of the top shutter row, the shutter release pushes up against a rotating spindle that holds the release for the bottom row of shutters. Here's what it looks like from the front of the camera. You can see my professional level fix for the spring tension issue was to simply stretch the spring more. I didn't clip the excess, and I have no idea how much this affects the shutter timing. Removing this last cover allows us to dump all the plastic lenses out and get a slightly better look at the shutters. As the shutters are primed, these plastic pieces slide past the release catches but don't move it enough to open the shutter. When they come back down on release, the greater movement needed for them to clear the catch fully opens the shutter. Here's what the whole thing looks like through the camera. And you know I gotta mess with stuff that's working perfectly fine, so while I'm in here I'll clip the excess off the springs. Yeah, the springs slipped, so the camera promptly stopped working correctly. Good thing I filmed this after everything else. After my Bostonian escapades, I motored my way up to my friend's lake house to complete my color film mission. And of course, there's only one brand of film that I would sacrifice to the red potato. At this point though, it really should have been Fujifilm because Kodak has been promoted in my film hierarchy, but Ultramax has that speed that I need, so that's what we're using. And with a significant amount of struggling, we're ready to go, but my photography endeavors were quickly overshadowed by my side quest to catch every species of fish living in the lake, which consumed the majority of the weekend. For those wondering why I didn't take any photos of the fish, I know, huge missed opportunity, but the first time I brought the Oktomat in the canoe with me, it filled with water, so I kinda had to let it dry out. Despite catching 27 fish, I unfortunately failed my task and also failed to capture more than 5 frames for the entire weekend. That's okay though, because it provides an opportunity to visit yet another photo location. I must tell you, the prospect of shooting 36 more frames out of this camera today is, well, it's daunting, to say the least. I'm at frame 11, so we got a ways to go. And every time I press the shutter release, I feel like I'm wasting both film, time, and opportunity. Because the problem with this thing is that it's completely worthless unless there's movement in the frame. So it's kind of hard to find. You'd be surprised at how hard it is to find shots that are going to be interesting on this. Maybe it's a skill issue. There's
fish, frogs, and snakes. You see that?
Don't throw things in the water.
Yeah, fish, frogs, and snakes. Spike the Oktomat.
Yeah, that's where it belongs, at the bottom of...
You ain't getting a Lomo sponsorship after this one. Can you do that?
I just did, so I don't know.
We'll find out.
Earlier, I did some trickery because the boat was moving too slow through the frame, so I walked while I was...
Taking it?
Yeah, taking the shot. So we'll see how that turns out. See, I'm hitting like the next level of Oktomat
Lomography
usage, where I'm starting to experiment, further the experimentation. I don't know. Still don't want to shoot with this thing anymore. Getting swarmed by gnats. It's so bad. Yeah. Alright. It's about all the light we have. Dude, I'm so close to actually finishing this roll, too. I'm at like 32 of 36, and I really don't want to go out and have to shoot this again. I could just develop it as is and just fucking take the L on the last 4 frames. It's not like I'm not already wasting the film shooting it in this thing, so I don't know. Time will tell. Well, time did tell. And while I didn't deliberately waste the last few frames, only one of them came out. Honestly, I was letting my hater energy get the best of me there on the last day out with the little Oktomat, but with the benefit of hindsight, I can say that it was worth it. This thing does take pretty cool images, and while it is a major pain in the ass to convert them into GIFs, I could see myself picking it up again for the right location, 3 years from now. But do I recommend that you buy one? Well, no. After taking a look at what these things go for on eBay, let's just say I wouldn't even spend that much on a new one. Although I do think it's a shame that this is one of Lomography's discontinued models. Well, that about wraps it up for the Oktomat. If you liked this video, consider subscribing for more of my creative endeavors. And to my current subscribers, be on the lookout for my next upload, which will be a certified zinger for those of you who have been begging in the comments section for more camera tinkering. But until then, thank you for joining me on this GIF-fueled adventure, and you never know. Lomography may someday resurrect the Oktomat. Later.
You ain't getting a Lomo sponsorship after this one.